When everything becomes easy, nothing is appreciated. Commitment will cost you. And in that cost is where the true depth of your commitment is revealed. This instant gratification is an odorless gas that is suffocating our potential. It is conditioning us for easy. It is training us for temporary. It is depreciating the accomplishments of our time. Humans are reward-based. We seek rewards in many different forms. Without the systems and without the prize, motivation wanes. So as I look at today's society, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with the slow, apathetic fade to commitment. I always used to make fun of guys who would go through a midlife crisis. You know, the guys driving the Miatas or wearing clothes that were really just not for their generation. It was embarrassing, or at least it seemed that way to a younger me. Why try so hard to chase something that you clearly are not going to achieve anymore? Those days are behind you. Just let it go. Yet the closer I got to 40, the more I began to realize the feelings that accompany midlife milestones. There's a sense of loss as you begin to come to grips with the fact that there is a real probability this ride we call life is heading towards a conclusion. Maybe even the best half of it is already behind you. And like the problem so common with humankind, there arises a sense of fear, or at the very least awareness, that the clock is ticking on what is left. Now, my family and I have taken a week-long vacation to the beach for well over 10 years. Now, I'm one of those crazy dads that wants to beat the traffic, and I fancy myself a 5-hour energy to help me do it. So up at 3 a.m. to make the 7-hour drive. But of course, you can't get into the rental until 4 p.m. So while we beat the traffic, the day often extends into burning some time. Finally, we can get into our house, and the painful process of unloading what seems like enough food to feed an army begins. And of course, the kitchen is on the top floor of a 3-story beach house. So as if it wasn't enough to spend most of the day in a car, now you get the added pleasure of a complimentary gym session to wrap it up. Yet each year, my favorite time of the vacation is the evening of the day that we arrive. I sit back on a beach chair on top of the 3rd-story balcony, staring out across the ocean, and can truly relax. Not only because 7 hours of driving and 47 flights of stairs have worn me out, but because it is the beginning of the holiday. The adventure lies before me. The anticipation is at the edge. And yet as the week draws on, I find myself checking how many days left before we have to go home and dreading the slowly reducing number. This is what it feels like to turn 40. A coming to the realization that there is only so many days left to the adventure. I think people react differently to this understanding. For me, there is a sense of wanting to make the most of what is left, and that needs to be a daily reminder. But personally, I also came to an understanding about the intimate desire inside of me to push myself. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to do hard things. In many ways, I wanted to prove that I still could. This, I'm sure, is the attitude that has torn many an ACL or tweaked many a hamstring. The Bruce Springsteen song Glory Days runs through my mind as I think about trying to still live up to it. And that's the funny thing about getting older. The body and the brain are not always in sync. I don't feel 40. I don't feel old. And yet when I think about how I viewed 40-year-olds when I was 20, I thought that these people had it all together. And now that I'm 40, I certainly do not. It can't be possible that people who were 40 20 years ago were thinking the same types of thoughts as I am now at 40, right? Regardless, my confrontation with the 4th decade was going to include something hard. I was not going to just surrender to being, quote, too old. So I started the year laying out my goals. I wanted to set hard goals in multiple areas of my life. I wanted to do things like climb some cliffs. I wanted to read or listen to 40 books. I wanted to learn another language. These, of course, were not small things for me to be shooting for in a year. And in full transparency, I didn't make quite a few of them. But I did push the ball forward in some of them, and one in particular, I saw it through to the finish line. So I wanted to take some time with you to just have a little chat. This is a quieter episode. No jokes, no banter, no back and forth with me and Brian. This one's just you and me. If that's not your jam, that's okay. No problem. Just skip the episode, move on. We'll be back next week. But if you hang in there, I hope to give you a few things to reflect upon and review in your own life. I want to start off with the first idea, and that is commitment. The definition of commitment is a state or quality of being dedicated to a cause or activity. As a whole, I believe that our current society has greatly eroded not only the incentives to be committed, but by process of atrophy, also our own ability. On one hand, commitment has been turned trendy. People update their social profiles with temporary support graphics. Influencers move from one cause to the next. There's lots of what I will call temporary commitment. But that's not really commitment, is it? Rotating through the carousel of causes is only a pseudo-commitment, only lasting long enough to hit the high of promotion while rarely achieving the depth of dedication. On the other hand, the degradation in attention span, the ease of access to answers, and the erosion of struggle has choked out the daily need for commitment. You want to write a 10-page report? ChatGPT it. You want to lose weight? Take a GLP-1. You want to get food? Uber Eats. Now listen, I like my convenience as much as the next man, and I fully do take advantage of tools and services to truncate my own timelines. But it does come at a cost. When everything becomes easy, nothing is appreciated. You see, in my hometown each year, they host a fire and ice festival in February. For 2 weekends, they have ice craftsmen come to town and carve and sculpt intricate statues from ice ranging from a few feet tall to 10 feet tall. These skilled artisans spend hours with chainsaws, drills, Dremels to craft a beautiful piece of art that will melt a few days later. This year, we took the family and walked around the streets to check out dozens of these frozen designs. My 2 youngest children were impressed and found each statue to be cool and neat as they tried to figure out what it was, even after some melting from the sun, and then on to the next one to figure out what that one was. My oldest, preteen, though, seemed bored and ambivalent to the artwork. Now, I'm sure that some of that was due to the fact that we've gone a couple years in a row and he's seen some of these things before. And some of it probably had to do with some preteen hormones, I'm guessing. But some of it also has to do with a lack of appreciation. A lack of appreciation for the artistry and time it took to make each sculpture. Artistry and time that could only be achieved by commitment. You see, commitment requires sacrifice, often in tangible ways, but sometimes also intangible. It took over 2,000 years to build the Great Wall of China. Over 400,000 Americans died in pursuit of defeating Hitler. William Wilberforce spent 20 years enduring ridicule and political isolation before finally seeing the British slave trade abolished. Thomas Edison tried thousands of experiments and financial hardship before finally creating a commercially viable light bulb. Commitment will cost you. And in that cost is where the true depth of your commitment is revealed. In seasons of dryness, that is when the roots of a tree push deep and make the tree strong against the wind. So as I look at today's society, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with the slow, apathetic fade to commitment, because I think it produces inferior results. This instant gratification, it's an odorless gas that is suffocating our potential. It is conditioning us for easy, It is training us for temporary. It is depreciating the accomplishments of our time. You see, there are still some things that require commitment that cannot be cheated. Fine wine aged for years, bonsai trees that require decades of pruning, natural pearls that grow over years of oyster irritation. These are just a few. But this can be translated into the non-physical too. Things like trust, reputation, mastery, credibility, and wisdom can only be formed over time and commitment. And for these, there is no cheat code. You see, because commitment is hard, but it is good. And this is the first thing that I want you to think about. Commitment will cost, but the cost of no commitment is paid in loss of significance. With commitment comes meaning and purpose. Without it comes nihilism. My goal for the year that I turned 40 would be to run a marathon. And while some people might be able to do a couch to marathon, I am not one of them. 26.2 miles. This would be twice as far as I had ever run before in my life. Run a marathon. 3 simple words existing on a piece of paper with the word goals written above it. And as I confessed to you at the beginning, I had other goals written down in other words, but I did not achieve all of those because writing them down is simply acknowledging the idea. I had yet to actually commit. Why? Because it hadn't cost me anything. The cost was in concept. And in full disclosure, it would take me until July 31st, 7 full months later, to actually pay the registration fee. Then the cost of another several months of hard training before my commitment would finally pay off. This takes me to the second point, tenacity. When I was in middle school, my math teacher would sometimes invite me to play chess during a study hall. Now I know I probably lost a majority of you, but stick with me. I specifically remember playing him one match when I made a mistake and he captured one of my key players. It was a devastating loss to my side of the board, the kind that can make you want to hit the reset button, flip the board upside down, and say, let's just start over. But this game, I pressed on. I kept fighting and trying to work around the obvious wound. At the end of the game, he looked at me and gave me a word that still resonates today, tenacious. Tenacious means not readily relinquishing a position, principle, or course of action. Determined, persistent. It essentially means to not give up. If commitment is the state of being dedicated, then tenacity is commitment in action. It is the persistence of the commitment. I had to first identify a marathon to run. In my area, there's tons of 5Ks and smaller races and even a handful of 10Ks and half marathons, but there really wasn't too many full marathons. Little wonder. Some quick research and I found the only one in my area, known as the Enders Marathon, hosted in the capital city of Harrisburg. I now had my target. Registration had yet to open in January, so there was no need to be hasty. But I wasn't even running at the moment yet, and so the words on the paper would be enough for now. As calendar pages turned, the weather warmed up, and I finally started to lace up the old running shoes. In March, I dabbled with a few runs and then fell off the wagon in April. May, I found some new encouragement with at least some level of consistency, even if it was consistently slow. Hey, at least I was getting out there, I thought. My friend and I have run in a 4th of July 5-mile race every year for well over a decade, so I knew that I would at least need to be trained for that and prepared to run. And I did. But despite marathon registration having been long open, I had still yet to sign up. What's worse was that the price had kept going up, and now the race was considerably more expensive than had I registered early. I had not verbalized my goal to anyone other than my wife or a few people in a, yeah, someday I'd like to do it sense. I actually thought about telling a bunch of people at work to force myself to register out of sheer embarrassment, but still nothing. The idea of my commitment was fading, but the guilt remained. I can't give up on the push. Not this year, not when I'm turning 40, not when I'm supposed to do hard things. But of course, all the standard exits provided their enticements, and I could just do a half marathon this year, or maybe I could do a Tough Mudder or some type of Spartan race. I could focus on something else, maybe altogether. No one would know, and no one would be disappointed, except for one. I would have to live with my complacency. I would have to acknowledge later in life that I never did it. And back to my earlier thoughts on time, I'm not sure that if it wasn't going to be this year, if I ever would. So I persisted, I registered, and I began. This takes me to the third thing that I want to discuss, which is the idea of progression. Intentions were no longer sufficient for me. I needed a plan. I had signed up. I knew when the race date was. I needed a method to the madness. If I was going to see any level of sustained progress, I needed the trail, in this case, quite literally, to follow, and I needed a week-by-week breakdown to know whether I was on the right pace. Now, I've used a running app for years, and fortunately, it had a built-in training plan for just such a crazy idea. Check. I had the motivation, I felt tenacious, I had a plan, and now it was time for the execution. For me, slow and steady was going to be my mantra. This would carry me both through my training as well as through the race. I wasn't looking to place first. I was just looking to finish and check that box. So I started small, 2 short runs during the week with a long run on the weekend. At the time, I was also lifting 3 times a week, and I quickly determined that if I was going to continue with long runs on the weekend, I would have to eliminate one of the workouts. I was going to be serious about an endurance run. That's no problem. I just needed to make some adjustments, and that's a natural part of being real about achieving your goals. So, down to 2 days at the gym, 2 short runs during the week, 1 long run on the weekend. Now, I was already in motion for the 4th of July race. I had already put in some miles in training there, accomplished that, and I was already at a 5-mile shape, which was a little bit of a head start for my training plan. So my long distance Saturday run started around 7 miles. My plan was to add 1 mile each Saturday and keep adding until I got close to race week. My trail was quite literally a rail trail, a pathway that had formerly been a train track that had now been converted into a gravel roadway stretching through farmlands and small communities connecting 2 larger towns together. The trailhead was 2 miles from my front door, which meant I had buried 4 miles in my run, then however far I ran on the trail was added to it for my total distance. If I ran 1 mile on the trail, I'd have to come back that full mile, so that's 2 miles plus the 4 miles, 6 miles, there you go. In using this repetitive method, I organically started placing both physical and mental landmarks on the trail. I knew when I got to the trailhead, I was at 2 miles. I knew that when I got to the next road, I was at 3. Then the next road was 4. Then the road after that was 5. Then there was a bridge at 6. Then there was a tree on the corner. You get the point. As far as I ran, whenever I turned around, it was going to be the exact same mileage back. These milestones and a physical representation helped me with the mental discipline. This, I think, is a critical element of any good goal that you establish. Progress. You see, humans are reward-based. We seek rewards in many different forms. Some of us pursue recognition. Some of us pursue finances. Some of us pursue relationships. There's many variations of what these rewards can look like. We identify the reward system, and then we follow it seeking after the prize. But without the systems and without the prize, motivation wanes. Furthermore, most of us do not fare well with delayed gratification. The longer we must persist in the behavior before we receive the reward, the harder the behavior becomes. Financial experts encourage beginning to start financial retirement planning as early as 25 to maximize the idea of compounding interest while shooting for a retirement age in the early 60s. However, in 2024, Transamerica Institute report found that Gen Xers and baby boomers only began saving for retirement around 30 to 35. Why? Because the reward of retirement is so far away, and there are other more pressing needs in the here and now, or so it feels. As someone who personally is saving for retirement, it is difficult to see the reduction on my paycheck. But each month when I get my statement report, I see the progress, and I quickly remember the why. You see, progress is critical to long-term success. Specifically, the measurement of progress is fundamental in serving as a short-term reward. For me, running 26 miles was not going to be a small feat. I needed quick wins. I needed progress updates. I needed micro motivation to both let me know that I was making progress and that I was on track for the overall goal. Not only did I get that with each run in my mental milestones, but I also got it every 7 days when I checked off another week of my running plan. Without these check-ins, it would have been easy to get lost. Maybe I would have overloaded too heavy up front and got burned out. Or maybe I would have procrastinated and have to kill myself the last month of training just to have a chance at being able to complete the race. Slow and steady wins the race. For me, it gave me the mental stamina to sojourn on. Because it is a mental drag, pursuing things of value takes time. Not only because usually big goals are not easily accomplished, but also because you automatically value something more when it has taken you more time. This, of course, is relevant to the person. If my daughter brings home a drawing from school that took her an entire hour to create, it probably is equivalent to me taking an entire week to redo my bathroom. We champion progress. We champion personal progress and build a system that shows your own progress so that you can build sustainably into accomplishing your goals. There is value in comparing what other people are doing and certainly in setting the bar high based upon what others have already achieved. But don't sleep on the fact that you making personal progress is good and positive and moving in the right direction. Set your own bar high, but establish progress check-ins along the way to make sure that you're staying on pace. This takes me to the fourth item, focus. Anyone who has driven enough years or enough miles knows the experience of getting acquainted with one of this country's finest in blue. Generally, this is not a pleasant experience, not necessarily because of the officer, but definitely because of the fine. The pain of the fine, the hit to the wallet. Even though it may be warranted, this creates a patterned experience in our mind that we all want to avoid. And so every time that you find yourself jamming out to highway to the danger zone and feeling the need for speed as you pass people on the highway, and then you cross a corner and a turn and you see a parked cruiser hidden behind a billboard, and a deep feeling of dread comes over you as you peer into your rearview mirror, praying that today would be a day of mercy. Dread. To be in extreme apprehension of. As the weeks wore on, my aspirations wore down. My regret grew strong and my will grew weak. I began to dread running. By now, I was running a half marathon plus every Saturday morning, so as not to mess up with the schedules for the rest of the day, and still adding miles. Besides the actual distance and physical strain, the amount of time that it takes to train for a marathon is significant. By September, my average Saturday run was 3 hours and only getting longer. Now, on the plus side of this, I was able to consume an incredible amount of content. I was listening to podcasts, I was finishing books at 1.5 times, It was great. I was cruising through material and getting well acquainted with all kinds of concepts. This provided an unexpected but pleasant benefit. The mornings cooled and the leaves turned and autumn came, and with it, fall sports. For you soccer players out there, or those who have kids in soccer, you know that U15 games can start pretty early. So trying to make an 8 a.m. game when you have a 3.5 hour run to get in requires some early alarms. My Saturday morning run was gearing more towards a Friday night run, if you know what I mean. And running at night brings about some new experiences and some unwanted trail mates. I crossed paths with several skunks, and at one point I passed two guys on e-bikes who seemed to be sleeping behind a building and were aware of me running out in the open, in the dark, in the middle of a wooded area on a rail trail by myself. They passed me later down the trail, fortunately without incident. I generally do not struggle with anxiety, but as the miles kept stacking up, I found myself encountering a new and unexpected challenge: dread. Starting as early as Thursday, dread would begin settling in for my long Saturday run. And I can tell you the mental fatigue was far more impactful than any physical fatigue from the actual run. The recurring dread forced me to enforce a new discipline. This would be the discipline of focus. Our world is one of distraction. Everything is vying for our time and attention. All of us carry in our pocket the greatest and worst tool for the common man, perhaps in all of history. It is a pit of distraction. It is the drug we choose to check out of the now. Distraction constantly beckons to us, allures us, entices us to feed at its table. And its table is full of every food that you can imagine, so that you are never satisfied with one flavor when so many other tastes are to be had. Focus is our defense, an intentional drowning out of the voice of distraction to solely listen to the music of motivation. I'm a big Planet Earth guy. I love a documentary narrated by none other than Sir David Attenborough and some amazing HD footage of some new amazing creature or some incredible vista. Some of my favorites include the scenes from Antarctica, where emperor penguins live in massive colonies. These colonies can be tens or even hundreds of thousands in number, all jammed up together. During breeding season, little chicks learn the voice of their parents shortly after hatching. Each penguin has a unique vocal signature, sort of like a vocal fingerprint, if you will. Allowing a chick to hear its mother's voice in the middle of a blizzard, winds, surrounded by endless penguin cries, the vocal signature provides a focus point to eliminate all the distraction. How many times have you started a project, aimed for a goal, set forth a plan, only to find failure, not at the end of strain or stress, not at the bottom of an empty wallet, not from fear or constraint, but from distraction? The best of intentions simply were not enough. You needed someone or something to draw you forward. For me, I had 2 points of focus. The first was a micro focus, and that was the simple pleasure of a long hot shower after the run, some fresh waffles, a bottle of body armor, while I watched my son play soccer with the knowledge that I was done for the week, that I had accomplished my big run that day. The second was a macro focus. I wanted a picture. I wanted a picture of me after the race with a medal around my neck, my body drained of energy, my face full of victory. I wanted that picture. That was my focus. That was my constant why. That was what drove me through the dread. This brings me to the final point, which is finish strong. There's a Greek legend from 490 BC. The Persian army was making attack against the land of Greece. Greatly defeated and nearing the end of the battle, one of the Persian vessels was seen changing course to head towards the capital city of Athens. A young Greek messenger named Pheidoppides, I screwed that up totally, Pheidoppides. A messenger saw the vessel turn and assumed that the Persians were going to march into Athens and preemptively claim victory, solidifying their claim over Greece. Or at the very least, just to raid the capital city while the army was out fighting. In a time when the only method of quick communication was human transport, Pheidoppides reportedly ran roughly 25 miles from the battlefield to Athens to announce victory over the Persians. It is said that his desire for speed was so great that he ran without stopping, shed all of his weapons, even his clothes, to walk naked into the assembly and declare victory before collapsing and dying. What was the name of this historic battle? It was the Battle of Marathon. And what is the Greek translation of victory? Nike. Well, I'm not much of a Nike guy. I prefer Brooks myself for running, but I can definitely relate to running so far that you just die at the end. My training was drawing to an end, and I could see race day on the horizon. What stood between me and my picture was the final month of training. I was up to 19 miles with 4 Saturdays remaining. It was not my intention to train to 26. I wanted to get close and let race day do the rest. This year, March of 2026, at the LA Marathon, Michael Camus had led the race for quite some time. As he started down the final stretch, the aerial camera panned out and a new runner entered the frame. With only 800 meters remaining, which is 2%, less than 2% of the entire race, Nathan Martin closed a significant gap to win in a photo finish by 0.01 seconds, the closest race in the event's history. Nathan Martin won that race. Nathan didn't let off the gas. This Nathan did. Another hard goal that I wanted to do the year I turned 40 was to climb a Via Ferrata with my wife. Via Ferrata is Italian for Iron Path. Essentially, it's the combination of outdoor mountain climbing with metal monkey bars and cables strung through cliffs to give you a pretty amazing experience. It's awesome. These are all over the country, all over the world, and if you ever have a chance and you don't mind some heights, take advantage. My wife and I were scheduled for a long-deserved and desired weekend away to realize this goal right at the end of my training. But in pushing towards one goal, I pulled back from another, and I lost some momentum. There would be no long run Saturday on my weekend away. Back on track the next weekend, though, and I was up to 20 miles, but then an all-day soccer tournament an hour away, and I slept in. No 3 a.m. run for me this time. I was close enough. Race day was just around the corner. I'll be okay. I went into race day, November 9th, having gone 2 full weeks without a significant long run. It turned out that it was too long, and I would pay for it. Race day arrived, and we woke early to drive to Harrisburg. My wife was competing in the half marathon, and I in the full. It was a loop route, which meant that half marathoners ran it once and fulls ran it twice. You can spell fools however you prefer in that statement. In the days before race day, I felt a sore throat coming on, and it didn't give up. Thanks be to God, it didn't pain me too much on race day, but I certainly was not at 100%. So fighting off sickness and 2 weeks undertrained, I started what would be my final run. The course was on the Harrisburg riverfront. It's a beautiful morning. It was a beautiful morning for running, overcast with occasional sun, cold temps just right to keep you motivated. The route went across a bridge, hung a right before doubling back, now under the bridge, but along the river for miles and miles, to then swing up into a park area, circling around, back down along the river again, across a bridge, turning back, crossing the same bridge, to find another bridge, to then land up on an island that you had to finish, wrapping around the island and coming back to the start. I ran my first 6 miles without stopping, took my first water break to find my body already struggling. It was not encouraging. I found new love and importance of simple things like mini candy bars, somewhat needed and somewhat an excuse. The half marathon started after the full marathon by about 45 minutes. So I had a 45-minute head start on my wife, and I certainly didn't want to be passed by her. But as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm not a natural-born runner. And as I found out right around race day, this was a qualifying event for the Boston Marathon. And so let's just say I was well outclassed by the rest of the runners there. As I headed into the final miles of the first loop, I heard what seemed like a freight train coming behind me. This was not, in fact, a real freight train, but the locomotive rhythmic pounding of the pavement of a real runner, leading the way of the half-marathon group and flying by me. Like driving a VW Bug down the highway as an 18-wheeler passes by you and shakes the car, so was I as a runner runner after runner seemingly sprinted by me and nearly blew me off the track. I crossed the finish line to mentally swallow the reality of having to go run the same route all over again. The wind picked up later in the morning. Along the riverfront, it felt like I was running in place, alternating between walking and running and walking and running. Another bridge, now crosswinds, pushed against me sideways. Another mile, another mile, another mile. Turn around, run back across the same bridge, more sideways pushes. Oh, look, finally, a Gatorade table, just what I needed. My pace was dropping, my countenance was failing, my energy was lacking. And while I mainly wanted to finish, I did have a time in mind as my goal. And that time had come and gone, and I had still not finished. It is so difficult to finish strong. It is so difficult to stay the course, to remain faithful, to follow through, to be consistent, to finish strong. After 350 plus training miles across a summer and autumn of training, wearing out the support in my shoes, I was going to fall short of my time goal because I got distracted and I chose easy. It's hard to finish strong because finishing strong is hard. And one choice of ease can wipe out much more than just a simple running pace. Take a week off of the gym and it feels like you lost 6 months of gains. Take a vacation from work and it feels like you've lost your sales mojo when you come back. Take a cheat day on your diet and it feels all the easier to take a second one and a third one and another one. Part of the reason that finishing strong is so hard is that many times we don't really know where the finish line is. A number of years ago, my wife ran a half marathon, 13.1 miles. That particular race was smaller in size, and the course was long and sprawling. The kids and I followed her progress by trying to meet up with her at different places on the route and cheer her on. As we crossed paths one final time, we headed to the finish line to wait for her arrival. But she didn't come. You see, somewhere along the line, the course officers mismeasured the route and added a full mile into the race. So as my wife was mentally gearing up for the finish line and her watch was counting off the miles and saying, "You're almost there," the finish line was nowhere in sight. But she did finish, and the mental fortitude that she showed to keep running after her mind knew the race should be over was truly incredible. Even in my case, where I knew where the finish line was and my phone was reading off to me how many miles I had gone, the mental and physical toll was intense. To not know your finish line makes it even more so. But we are called to hard. We are called to challenge. We are called to push through and toil and struggle and yet endure. Right now, one of my sons is particularly trying. There's a lot of attitude issues, a lot of disrespect, and a lot of what seems like a complete absence of gratitude. It is a very trying season as a parent. And there are days when I just want to give up. But as any loving parent knows, that's not an option. I'm not in this for me. I'm in this for him. And every once in a while, he gives me a glimmer of hope with a surprise showing of selflessness or a written card revealing a softer heart. And it's in those flashes of light that it causes me to want to refocus, to measure some progress, to get tenacious, to stay committed, and to finish strong. And because I don't know how many days I have left in the parenting journey, it is hard. I don't know how much farther the finish line is, but I do know that it's worth it. It's worth the hard in pursuing something greater than myself. It's worth the hard to make a difference, to leave a legacy, to know that this thing, this goal, this objective, this season mattered. So here's what I want to leave you with as we wrap up this episode. I want you to think back through each one of these areas that we covered and do a check-in on you. Number one, are you a committed person? In your marriage, in your parenting, in your friendships, in your workplace, in your community, in your personal accountability? Can people count on you to show up and to matter? 2, are you tenacious? Do you keep attacking, fighting, working, running? Or are you looking for the easy way out? 3, are you measuring progress? Do you have systems in place in your life to help you see progress? Whether it's with your relationships or goals or weight loss or muscle gain or bank account or career trajectory. Do you have micro wins, macro wins set up to keep pushing you forward in progress? 4, do you have focus? Have you gotten distracted from the things that matter? Do you need to correct some priorities? Do you need to dream about getting that picture with a medal hung around your neck? 5, are you finishing strong? Understand that in many of the most important things in life, there is no known finish line. Yes, and if you were looking for the excuse part of the show, it's not here. Because on the other side of giving up too early is regret. I got my picture. I accomplished my goal. I still have a little bit of regret. I still have some worries that I didn't finish as strong as I wanted to. But I'm still proud. And I still look back and I still say it was worth it and I did it. But as you think through each of these questions, if it's time to make a change, do not delay. Your life is too valuable. The impact of your life on those around you is too critical. At the beginning of the show, I talked about things that cannot be cheated: trust, reputation, mastery, credibility, wisdom. And we now add to the list one more item that cannot be cheated, and that is your legacy. You see, the legacy that you want to leave cannot be bought, it cannot be cheated, and it cannot be faked. Your legacy matters. Don't take this casually. Don't watch this slide by as the days fade away and do nothing. It is too priceless. So I challenge you, faithful listener, be committed, be tenacious, measure your progress, keep your focus, finish strong, and wake up each and every morning and waste no day.